listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
You know, there's nothing like being on the promenade again. Try your hand at a little Dabo, have a Jumja stick, maybe have that lizard guy make you a new suit. It's Monday night at 7 Pacific, 10 Eastern, and it must be Mission Log Live. I'm John Champion.
And I'm Charlene Schmidt. Tonight, we follow the crew of the Cerritos for a pit stop at the tacky fascist Cardassian ice. No, that can't be right. Let's try that again. The most legendary Cardassian turned Bajoran space station near a wormhole to the Gamma Quadrant. It's Deep Space Nine. And normally at this time of the show, we would encourage you to call in.
Which we'll do right now. Click on the Zoom meeting link, use the one tap, or call us at 669-900-6833.
Very good. And we would also like to welcome those of you who are in the Facebook chat.
Which I will also do right now. Hello to Scott Palm. How are you doing? So Tracy, Coco, great to see you there. Narda, Paul, I believe there's another Paul hanging out. Maybe another Paul to join us later. John Arminio. Carlos, Dominic, Mike. So good to see all of you. But we're going to cut this part pretty short too.
Yeah, and we would also normally tell you about what's happening on all the Roddenberry shows, too.
We would, but you can do that for yourself right now or later by visiting podcast.roddenberry.com.
Yes, and finally, John, would you read an episode recap before getting to our special guest?
Aha, okay, that's where tonight will be a little bit different because we have a very special guest. And you know what? I will do the recap. It'll take me just a couple of minutes, but I don't want to let anybody hang on any longer. I want them to know right away who our special guest is. He's here with us now. It's Armin Shimerman. Welcome to the show, Armin. Glad to see you.
Happy to be here. Glad to see you guys as well.
Excellent. All right. Well, Armin, sit tight for just a moment because I'm going to do the world's fastest Lower Decks recap, at least when it comes to Mission Log style. Here we go. And I know that we already have some callers lined up, and there are more of you who will want to join us now that we've done the big reveal. So here we go. Lower Decks, Season 3, Episode 6. Hear all, trust nothing. DS9 is indeed all it's cracked up to be. Shax reunites with Kira in a game of one-upmanship on who owes the other their life. Boimler racks up big winnings at the Dabo table. Mariner gets trapped in the living nightmare that is the salon of Jennifer's girlfriends on the Cerritos, dipping candles and doing interpretive dance. But the real action comes when Tendi meets another Orion, Mesk, who is also serving in Starfleet. He's super into the Orion pirate life, which makes Tendi a bit uneasy. When the Karema delegation arrive, they're pretty cool to anything that looks like negotiation, but they get really interested in stealing the Quark 2000 replicator, and Quark himself then sabotage DS9 and the Cerritos, killing all power so they can make their getaway to the Gamma Quadrant. Not so fast. Rutherford, Tendi, and Mesk are already on board the Karema ship, delivering booze for the trade negotiation, but their presence goes unnoticed. As the ship makes its way to the wormhole, Mesk cracks. He's not a pirate at all, but rather was raised in Cincinnati by human parents. Tendi reveals quite the opposite. She's got mad pirate skills and manages to take control of the Karema ship, partly by using a guard's latinum tooth to decouple the power system. With the Karema in the brig, Captain Freeman is ready to broker a peace, but there's a bigger misunderstanding. The Karema were there to arrest Quark for stealing their replicator technology, the backbone of the Quark 2000. In that case, the negotiation takes on a new angle. The Karema will get 76% of Quark's profits, and Quark gets to not go to prison. All's well that ends well. That one is for you, Armin. With Mariner impressing Jennifer by phasering all her friends, and Boimler, like the sucker he is, cashing in his latinum for Quark's bucks that he can only spend in the gift shop, that leaves Colonel Kira, who infuriates Shax by telling him she owes him one. And finally, Quark himself, who is disgruntled to be catering to the Karema, but earns the spoils of one latinum tooth liberated by Tendi. The end. Told you it would be fast.
That was as concise as you could make it, sir. Well done.
Thank you. We had to cut through very quickly because we have a special guest. Hey, before we bring in our first caller, and Armin, since we have you here, we were talking before the show about how you had to keep this very quiet for a long time. When were you approached, and was it Mike McMahon or somebody else in the production who said, hey, you know what, we have this idea of bringing you back?
I don't know who on the productions first came up with the idea. I only know my agent called. Actually, I had to go through two agents. They called my on-camera agent, which was a natural thing to do. But my on-camera agent said, we would like to cover you, but technically it's a voiceover job, and so it has to go to your voiceover agent. So they switched they switched agents, and my voiceover agent Kathy took over the reins of getting it. But it was about a year and a half before this episode aired that I was approached, and then I think I had to wait about 7 or 8 months before we actually did the voiceover work. And then there was another 7 or 8 months before the episode aired. It was a long time.
Wow.
Yeah. And you and Nana had to keep that very quiet.
That whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah. To all the people I said who asked me, am I coming back as Quark, and I lied to, my apologies.
Well, it wasn't so much a lie.
It was a lie.
It was deception.
Right. But with that said, though, my understanding is that you have done Quark's voice many times before. Star Trek Online did multiple episodes of the game with Quark as a prominent character. So it's not like Quark has been completely out of your mind.
No, and he never really is, because I spend a lot of time responding to emails or social media accounts where they ask me questions about Quark. So he's always there. He's a little voice that sits right behind me and whispers in my ear on a regular basis.
So it wasn't like a massive transition, I'm guessing, to get into Quark's head and reprise this role, which was, it ended on TV several years ago, but he's never fully left. That's what it sounds like.
Yes, he's never left my consciousness. That's for sure. And I'm happy to say, and very proud to say, and flattered to say, that he hasn't left the viewer's consciousness either.
No, definitely not. I do have one big question. It's about the teeth. You confirmed on Twitter that you put in the teeth to get into the right voice and tone for Quark. How much of an adjustment was that, or was it?
Well, it wasn't much of an adjustment. Biologically, your teeth move in your mouth. So the old teeth that I had from the show no longer fit onto my present teeth. So a couple of years ago, for one of the games, I had to have new teeth made that I hadn't made personally, and I was able to put those on for the show. I did wear the teeth, but when I listened to Lower Decks, I sometimes thought, I know I wore the teeth, but it just doesn't sound exactly right. The teeth were there, but it wasn't exactly right. And I imagine that's because the person who remade the teeth did not make the same exact design as the original Michael.
Oh, sure.
Interesting. I definitely will have more questions about the recording process and getting into character. I do want to jump to our caller, and I also want to mention that in the chat, by the way, thank you, Charlene, because Rand asked that same question about the teeth. He wanted to know that in the chat.
We all wanted to know.
Yes, yeah. Dave says that Armin is so popular, he needs 2 agents. And Scott Palm said, how many agents do you have?
2.
2. You have the 2. So there's on camera and there's voice. Excellent. All right. Well, let's welcome our first caller tonight, Chris. Pleasure to see you floating there in space dock with the Cerritos. How are you doing tonight, Chris?
Doing good. Nice to see you all. Yes, Char, you stole my teeth question. I cannot forgive you for this. So I'm kind of
Sorry.
now.
You can chew me out later. It's fine.
Oh, hey, no pun intended. Yes.
Oh, hey. Yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah. Well, what else other than Armin's teeth?
Other than the teeth, yeah. No, this was a really great episode. Firing on all cylinders. It was great to see us back on the station, hear the music, and I think it's really nice. Trek often exists in this kind of like discrete packets, even if they do like overlap in the way that like DS9 Next Gen, like in the timeline overlap, but they don't overlap like in terms of TV content. Right. And so it's nice to sort of see them. To see the Lower Deckers come here and be like, oh yes, this is all one universe. It all exists at the same time. And yeah, it was just great seeing everyone back hanging out.
Well, it was indeed great. And you mentioned the music. I actually started to tear up the first time I watched the episode when I heard the music and saw the depiction of Deep Space Nine floating in space. That was so wonderfully nostalgic and so touching. My thank yous to all the people involved who did that.
It's stunningly beautiful, right? And I love how Lower Decks is so deftly able to skirt these lines where you have this fast-paced, broad action comedy, but then these scenes of real beauty, especially with Deep Space Nine, gorgeous-looking station. It just, yes, even though it is cartoon CG rendered, it still has the same weight and gravitas and dramatic appeal that model did on the show way back when. It's stunning to look at. And the music does not hurt. Armin, was that undermined at all for you when you hear Captain Ransom saying, just keep circling? I
could have lived with the whole episode just be circling Deep Space.
Nice. Okay.
45 minutes of just that. That would have been fine. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I would not have gotten into trouble, but perhaps we wouldn't have gotten a residual either. So that's perhaps not the best thing.
Very important. Yeah. Or they might have just paid you a residual with a gold tooth. That would have been it.
Yeah.
Chris, any other thoughts, questions tonight?
Yeah, just on that topic of like the way they sort of balance that. One of my favorite bits from this week, and I had a lot of favorite bits, but it's that moment when Kira walks in the office and she just looks out the window and she kind of like wistfully looks at the wormhole. And I'm like, that feels real. Like, I believe that. That would be in like, the reboot or sequel series. If we had it, like, I feel that. So yeah, great job all around. Yeah.
It was a very lovely moment, and in a sense, for what do I know? But maybe she's looking out the window, waiting for Cisco to come back.
That was what I was thinking.
Yep.
Yes. Yep. Probably checks that every day.
Yeah.
It's a nice moment.
It's a little ritual for her.
The baseball back if he does.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Chris, any other thoughts tonight before we go to our next caller?
No, that's it. I mean, it's just a wonderful episode. Probably the top of the season for me so far. But yeah, great seeing everyone. Nice talking to you, Armin.
Nice talking to you, Chris.
Chris, take care.
Good to see you, buddy.
Hey, a question that popped up in the chat here that I was very curious about. Somebody pointed out, that this process started about 18 months ago for you with getting that initial call. But then we're also more deeply into the COVID pandemic. Things are shut down. Were you recording from home? Were you in a studio? Were you around other people for this? How did that process go?
I was in a studio, and there were other people there, but not in the recording booth. Usually when you record something, unless it's a cartoon show, this is an animated show, but usually when you record something like this, you record alone, and you have the earphones on, and the director is on the mic giving you direction, which is exactly what happened here. I also remember, yes, it was just me, and Nana had recorded earlier, either in the week, so I didn't get to see Nana. I didn't get to see anybody, but just record the lines. And unlike Deep Space Nine, Lower Decks was amenable to my actually changing the lines, which was taboo on the show.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So what did you change? If you
there was a line about something about my clients. My clients weren't going to like something. They had written something else, and I said Quark would actually stand up. He'd be more concerned about his clients than about something else. And I remember what it was originally, and then I put in some things like, I think I put in a Ferengi scream at one point.
Yeah.
That's just part of the character, and. But there was one or two lines where we changed them. Yeah. Which, again, on Deep Space Nine, if we didn't hear from the script coordinator, DLP, at the end of a particular take, DLP standing for Dead Letter Perfect, we knew we had to do that scene or that take again.
Oh,
Mm.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah, a lot of comments here. And by the way, Dominic in the chat says, I'm still in shock about Armin. So that's great. I'm glad that has continued to surprise and delight you, as this episode did for many of us. One of the things that I think is so cool about the way this episode plays out is that we do give the Lower Decks characters their moment, and this is a Tendi episode. It's really nice to see her character development, and sometimes it can be handled poorly where if the location, in this case Deep Space Nine, is just sort of, it feels like a B plot, but I felt like just the opportunity to really feel like you're hanging out with these characters and they're still there doing their thing. I love the reveals about what has happened since we last saw them, that Quark has these multiple franchises.
23 franchises.
23. I love the gift shop and all that. It just felt perfectly like it was in the world, you know?
It's very organic. That's what I really
yeah.
appreciated, is you're taking two separate shows in the same universe, mind you, but tying them together in just this very natural way. Like Kira and Shax, yeah, of course they were in the Resistance together. That makes a lot of sense. That sort of a thing. It was just such a seamless blend. It was great.
Yeah.
Good writing. It was good writing.
Yeah. Let's go to our next caller. I believe Dr. Dawson is standing by. John D., how you doing tonight, sir?
I'm well, John. How are you?
Good to see you. And you are there from Quarks.
I am.
Wow.
Yeah.
See how I did that? I saw that Armin was on, and I'm like, quick, change my background.
You know what? I hear that stuff in the gift shop is cheap. So just watch your wallet, okay?
It's cheap
Take
for
the
ranky knockoffs. Sorry,
Yeah.
sorry, Armin.
So what's on your mind tonight, John?
This I love the episode. I don't think there's anybody who didn't love the episode, so we'll just accept that as fact. And it's great to see Armin. I've been on a couple things with Armin. I don't think you'd remember me, but I wanted to kind of take a conversation a little bit away from Trek, a little bit, not really. Because Armin and Katie, his wife, and Frakes did some big philanthropy stuff last year that I was proud to be a contributor to, and
Yes, thank you, John. Thank you very much.
boosting on social. And I'm wondering what Armin's always involved in a lot of charity stuff. So I'm wondering what's going on now. Is there going to be a Trek philanthropy project this year?
Well, we'll continue our work with PanCan, which was a charity to get rid of pancreatic cancer. As most people know, or maybe don't know, my wife is a survivor of pancreatic cancer, and unfortunately, Jonathan lost his brother to pancreatic cancer. That is primarily where we put our efforts as far as charity. There are other charities. And a lot of political contributions, because this is that time of the year when candidates are asking for money. But we are very proud and very happy to support PanCan, which does an incredible job. Just a quick shout out to them, and also to pancreatic cancer patients. When Kitty was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer 18 years ago, the survival rate was 4%. I'm happy to say, thanks to the efforts of the medical profession, thank you, Dr. John, Dr. John D., and the other doctors, and PanCan, the survival rate has now gone to 11%. Not good, but obviously exponentially better than it was when Kitty first came down with it.
That's incredible.
Yeah, that is. And by the way, Heather in the chat, Heather, one of our guest co-hosts on the show, saying that is Trektivism in action indeed. And just reminding people that there will be more Trek talks coming and additional Trektivism projects. And we were so happy that during the Trek Talks event last January that PanCan got highlighted there, and hope for more in the coming one. So
yeah, a lot of us actors have things that we espouse. John Billingsley, for instance, of the homeless. A lot of people, different causes, and I must say, all the actors that I know of constantly say that the Trek fandom is enormously kind, generous, and charitable, for which I'd like to thank everybody for that.
Indeed. Doctor, any other thoughts tonight before we move along?
Just asking the question that's on everybody's mind, and Armin probably can't answer is, will we see Quark again
Next question.
anytime soon? Yes. What I thought.
But before you got here, we were joking that the standard thing for a Star Trek interview is always asking, would you come back to play this character? And the standard answer is always, I would be
Yes,
delighted if
would.
they offered.
Absolutely, I would love to come back and do it. I just have to be asked.
That's how it goes. All right. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. Pleasure to see you, and hope to
Thanks,
see
John.
you again soon.
And I did start to listen to the latest podcast, and I'm really jealous about your pre-podcast conversation about the Star Trek features on the cruise you were on. Which was great for those of us Patreon people who get to hear that.
You're quite welcome. It was very cool. Even with the little technological hiccups, it was still really nice. So, all right. Until next time, my friend, take care.
All right. Take care,
Bye-bye,
buddy.
John.
By the way, I love that Spencer points out, speaking of Morn, I wonder how it was for Armin to work with Mark Allen Shepard again.
Pretty much the same. He was
Pretty
quiet.
much the same, yeah. Guy won't shut up. Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you for that, Spencer. I love it. Let us go to our next caller, standing by, also from the Cerritos. It is Alan. Alan, good to see you. How are you doing tonight?
Hi, John. Hi, Shar. Hi, Armin. How are you? Yeah, it's amazing. After a year or so of calling into the show, I've finally started getting over my stage fright and everything, and then you spring Quark on me. I don't know what to say.
Okay, now wait a minute. Wait. You say that
Yeah.
stage right. What Armin doesn't know is that you will show up here week after week, and sometimes you have songs for us. Sometimes there's like a whole lot of thought. Sometimes you're in costume.
I was a pirate once, John. That is correct. Yes,
You were. So
You do
stage
cool
fright,
stuff, man.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound like stage fright to me either, especially if you go up with songs. That's why I left New York City. It's because I couldn't sing, and I decided I better go to Los Angeles.
It's all game face. It's all game face.
That's right.
Right.
But yeah, it's such a thrill to be here with you guys, and we're all in good company on the lower decks. So yeah, just thrilling. I guess if I may ask, Armin, having done 7 seasons of Deep Space Nine, hundreds of scripts, you get used to a way of performing for Star Trek, DLP, and all, and then suddenly you're doing a very much different style of script for lower decks that I think we've all sort of noticed is a lot more compact in terms of scripting and verbiage and things compared to what live action Star Trek has been. Were there any interesting challenges with that, or just wrapping your head around Quark at like 1.5 speed?
Well, I must say, no, there were no challenges. Let me explain why. Besides my work on Deep Space Nine and on Star Trek, I have had a nice career as a voiceover actor, and I've done a number of games, and for a number of years was a series regular on a cartoon show. So I'm used to the fast pace of animation, and I'm used to what was required in order to do animation. So as an actor, I learn from every performance that I do. And from every character that I do. I've had the good fortune to play hundreds of characters at this point. So I just combined the education I got from doing Grim and Evil to the education I got from being on Deep Space Nine, and just did those things together. That's all. So no hiccups, no road bumps, nothing at all.
Oh, fantastic.
I was used to the teeth, so that was not a problem either.
Yeah. And, I don't want to take up too much time tonight, just to say that if I said this on our the Discord that we have for our for Mission Log that, you know, Deep Space Nine had its annual things. There was sort of like the annual Ferengi episode. There was the annual Mirror Universe episode. It would be great if Lower Decks could have an annual Deep Space Nine episode. And for you and for Nana or for anyone else who wants to come back, you know, we can get to everybody else.
Alan, I mentioned before I have 2 agents. Obviously, I now have a third one. I would very much like to have that happen, Alan. But I also was thinking about this the other day. I think it would be unfair to some of the other shows if we just felt on Deep Space Nine. We need to have, and perhaps they've had them. We need to have a Voyager episode. We need to have an Enterprise episode. So, yes, I would love it if there's an annual Deep Space Nine reunion. But I want to be fair to my friends on other shows as well.
That's very gracious.
That's very charitable of you, and I'll be in touch in terms of
if this works out.
If it works out,
10%. Although we can negotiate.
Fantastic.
Alan, always a pleasure. And look, no song this week, but come back strong next week. Okay.
We'll do what we can, sir.
All right.
Have a good one.
All right, take it easy. By the way, in the chat, Paul and then followed by Rand, a couple of, important comments here. Paul says, must have been nice to not have to sit through the makeup again. But then Rand follows with, I would love to know if Armin put on the ears in addition to the teeth in the recording booth. I think he's saying that partly facetiously.
Sure. It was lovely not to put on makeup. That's 2 hours of my life that I was able to keep. As far as putting on the ears, yes, I know he was being facetious, but it would have been detrimental because perhaps you know or don't know, when Ferengi wear their heads, we go deaf. All that rubber over our ears, it's very hard to hear. So it would have been impossible to hear what the director was saying over the headsets if I was wearing the ears.
I imagine, though, that there's a physicality to the Ferengi, though. So when you're in a recording booth and in front of a mic and with headphones on, I imagine you're picturing sort of that physicality in your head that, Quark moves a certain way, his phrasing, his pacing is a certain way that is not Armin, it is Quark.
Right. That's the character. When you play any character, you try to get into the mind and body of that character. And to the extent that you succeed is the extent that your performance is good or bad. Quark is so just outside of my frame of reference that it didn't take much to get back into that head. I had 7 years of experience, as everyone knows. So even though it's been decades since I performed that character, he's always sat on my shoulder and reminded me that he's there.
Are there other characters who are as close, who can also come back with that ease?
Yeah, I imagine there are. I would say that my character of Snyder, who's not a pleasant person at all, would come back pretty easily. I love the performance I gave in the game BioShock, where I played Andrew Ryan. I believe that character would come back pretty good. But probably the easier performances might be some of the Shakespearean characters that I played more than once. Those would come back. Claudius, Polonius, Gravedigger, all those would come back, I think, pretty quickly.
Nice. We've got 3 more callers lined up. We have Paul, we have Cherie, and then we have JD. So anybody who wants to come and join us tonight and talk with Armin, now is your chance. Click the Zoom meeting link, use the one tap from your smartphone, or dial us up the old-fashioned way. We would be delighted to hear from you. But we're at the bottom of the hour, so that means it's time for me to be crassly commercial for just a minute. Won't take up much time with it, but I will remind all of you to join us at patreon.com/missionlog. That not only gives you early access to Mission Log shows and exclusive swag, but most importantly, the Mission Log Discord. And that truly is our community online that is for all of you. Alan mentioned it in his call, how we're having a conversation there about Lower Decks and about revisiting certain places. And anything and everything under the sun, not just Star Trek, but other fandoms and food and travel and everything that makes that community fun. So join us there, patreon.com/missionlog. That's what you need to do. And then we will send you a link to join us at the Mission Log Discord. That was short and sweet, right? That was easy.
Absolutely.
John, who is the Ferengi here?
Well, I
was just thinking, you can make Frankie proud.
Not the first. I'm sure that there's a rule of acquisition about, buttering people up and getting them into our Patreon for a recurring subscription. Why wouldn't we? All right.
Why wouldn't it?
Yes. All right. Well, with that business, the ugly head of capitalism showing itself in our show, let's now welcome one of our next callers, and that would be Paul. Paul, who is joined by Tendi in the background, of course. Paul, how are you doing tonight?
Greetings, Mission Log for the win. Armin, such a pleasure to see you. We've met several times throughout the years on various cons, and wow, I wasn't expecting this tonight. There's a question Evelyn was posting, and I sort of have a similar kind of deal. I assume when you read this brilliant dialogue with Kira, those interchanges you had were just so amazingly like no time has passed. Did you get a chance to rehearse with her before, or you just read it? And I assume you were reading it blank, assuming she said it. Is that correct?
All your assumptions are correct, Paul. I didn't get to work with Nana. I just remembered, as Quark's voice and character sits just outside my periphery, so do some of the other characters on the show, including Kira. So I could hear what Nana was going to do. I probably wasn't always 100% right, but I pretty much knew what she was going to do, as I did probably in the 6th and 7th season of Deep Space Nine. We were pretty, we knew our characters and the other characters pretty well. So it would have been lovely. It would have been better, I think, to have Kira there. But the memory of her was rather strong.
Excellent. I wrote these two quotes. It's like, I have principles, and I know you knew it was coming. It's like, no, you don't. It was perfect.
Perfectly well done.
And I would beg to differ. I would say that Quark does have principles, just not human principles.
Certainly.
He has of acquisition, which for the most part he tries to follow. So those are his principles. They may not be your principles, but they are his principles.
So I just have a couple of brief questions about the store. The ears that are for sale, obviously on the fake ad site, John needs to purchase now that we've made him an honorary Ferengi. Are those screen used? Or
nice.
So in Quark's store, there's mannequin heads with ears, and of course they wouldn't be screen used if they're real Ferengi. But I mean, would these be straight from? Would a Ferengi actually make copies of his own ears to sell? That's interesting.
If there's a profit, right?
Yeah, I think not only would they sell those ears, they would sell the ear trimmers, the ear hair trimmers along with them. I mean, that's the bonus accessory that you would have to get if you're buying the full set. Oh, yeah.
Okay, so two last questions about the marketing. What metal, if a Ferengi needed a tooth to be replaced, and we've rarely seen, if any, fillings in a Ferengi tooth, what metal would they use? Would they go with the expensive metal or the cheapest possible?
Probably the cheapest possible, Paul, I would imagine. But thankfully, we don't have that problem.
Yeah.
Humans are just improperly made. Ferengis are perfect.
It's obvious. And the last question.
And they live for a very long time, so things don't deteriorate very quickly.
Right. It's all that rain, like Portland.
Yeah.
So the one last question that I think the world needs to know: when I come in and buy an autograph from Armin Shimmerman, it costs X amount. To get the selfie though with Quark at the bar, I would imagine, would that be much more expensive?
It depends where. To give you an honest answer, Paul, it depends where, because all of that is set by the conventions, not by the actors. And if it were part of the deal, then it would be free, I suppose. And if it was a small convention, perhaps they would charge a lot. We get a fee for appearing. On occasion, if we sell more than we're obligated to do, we get some of that. But for the most part, it all goes to the conventioneer, and they give us a stipend for appearing.
Okay, but at Quarks, do you think he would charge more?
at Quarks in
Of course.
universe.
Of course he would.
Yeah.
And I love that sequence at the very beginning where he's signing autographs and taking selfies. And I hope he got a lot of that in for that.
That was the
And
inquiry.
he has to share it with me at some time.
Yeah. By the way, I love this that in the chat, Alan says no amount of Sluggo Cola can dissolve a Ferengi tooth.
That's right.
And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Paul, listen, before you go tonight, I have to ask you because you are clearly like our resident Tendy's biggest fan. I mean, she's right there behind you. I want to know what you made of this episode because look, even though part of me felt like the switcheroo between Mesk and Tendi revealing their true sides, it kind of felt obvious to me, but it was so satisfying, given the journey we've been on with Tendi. What did you make of it as a fan and follower?
Well, as a person who follows her career, intently as I do,
Yes.
I try to control my emotions, but periodically I just go boom. People who've known me for a long time have witnessed that. Not many, and I was so proud of her for holding it in as long as she could. And then just when she's had it, and she takes charge and just goes off on the guy and then has to take charge to clean up the mess. So she's obviously, I think, the captain's material of all these lower deckers. And it's very satisfying to watch, this person who I just like from the beginning just develop into this amazing character. I thought the whole sequence was just unexpected. I don't know. And Mesk, I'm just wondering if Paul W. on the chat, since he lives in Dayton, has met Mesk or will meet him.
Maybe at some point in the future. Yeah.
Anyway, great honor. Thanks for the question, John. Armin, a pleasure. Charlene, always a pleasure to see you. And John, my friend, you hit out of the ballpark once again tonight. Thanks.
Take
to
care, my
Earl and the whole
friend.
Well,
bunch.
nice to see you again.
Take care,
Great to
buddy.
see you, Armin.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I loved it. People in the chat who are talking about Tendi. Paul W. says, nice to see Tendi embrace her Orion side. Dominic says, I loved Tendi's face kick. I have to agree with you there for sure. Alan says, obvious but satisfying. Sounds like the definition of solid writing. And then Carlos says, Tendi is the person I would want in charge if we were on the Kobayashi Maru. I just thought, like, as an episode, Lower Decks has done this nice job of revealing things about characters over time. They kind of, at the beginning of the season, you feel like, okay, these are literally cartoons. These are literally two-dimensional characters. But they keep going and keep revealing things about them. And ultimately, we get these very multifaceted characters in this short, fast-paced show. So I was delighted with Tendi's plotline in this.
And let us
Everybody
give a
grew about 5%, which was a fantastic thing. Like, I forget who says that, but if a story moves about 5%, if characters grow about 5% in a script, that's good writing, because you're not keeping the characters static, but you're not taking too big of leaps to where it's not believable. Just enough movement to keep them going.
Agreed.
Absolutely. And let us give a shout out to Star Trek for creating strong female characters, whether they're on
Heck yeah.
or animation. Star Trek was one of the first franchises to do that. And I, for one, am very glad that he did that, so that we see strong women in charge, women, that aren't subservient to men. God bless them.
Yeah. Hey, since you brought that up, I want to ask you something, because that shows a bit of interest and insight into what Star Trek did starting in the 60s and well before you were a part of the cast. And I know that obviously you played the very first Ferengi in Next Gen.
Badly, I performed it badly, but I was the first. Yeah.
Well, it
you
was
got
good
the party
enough they
started.
brought you back. Yeah, they liked you enough they brought you back. But
To make amends.
yes, yeah, but it reshaped the characters, reshaped the Ferengi a bit.
Very well.
Yeah, but I want to ask you about that. That's something that I think is a challenge that is unique to Star Trek actors, in that you're in a franchise that's 50 plus years old. You are also in a franchise that has a relationship with its fandom. I can't think of other franchises where, with such regularity, actors, writers, directors make themselves available, go meet and talk to fans the way that Star Trek has developed this community around the fandom and around the franchise. Do you feel like at some point you Unless you were already a fan from the beginning, do you feel like you sort of had to go back and do the homework to figure out Star Trek in order to talk about it with fans, in order to wrap your head around it?
Well, to answer that question, I was a fan from the beginning. I was dutiful about watching the original show. And in fact, when we started the show and we knew that we were going to go on conventions, and I had already started doing conventions for other science fiction TV shows before I appeared on Deep Space Nine, that I was actually the go-to person on the set for the other actors to come and ask, well, what's it like to go to conventions? How do you deal with the fans? I am a fan who just happens to be sitting in the captain's chair. So I won the lottery. I had no problems dealing with fans. I don't think I've ever had a problem. And more often than not, when I'm at a convention, I'm the one who's sitting there the longest from 9 to 6 because I actually want to hear their stories. I want to hear how the show has affected them, and not just the show. I want to hear about their lives because as an actor, you draw upon the lives of other people to create characters. And so I'm sort of stealing their life stories, but I'm also, I think, slightly empathetic, and I want to hear how we help them through difficult times.
Excellent. All right, let us meet our next caller, Cherie, I believe from Quark's Bar.
And repping the Ritos.
Yes.
Kind of looks like I have the ears now.
There you go. Did you get those at the gift shop?
Maybe.
I love it. Well, it's nice to see you tonight. What is on your mind?
Oh, well, since Armin is here, it's so cool to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Sherry.
I was just wondering, since you are a Star Trek fan, what's your favorite Star Trek show and who's your favorite captain? And I know the favorite captain doesn't have to be from the same show. So.
Well, how do you expect me to answer that question? And of course, my favorite captain is Avery Brooks. Of course, and I couldn't say anything else. That is my favorite. I love the show that I was on. I'm very proud of the show I was on. I believe it's the best Trek ever, and I was very lucky and very fortunate to be part of that ensemble. I'm very proud also to tell everyone that I was the first actor hired for the show, and that's an honor that I'll take to my grave. So, yeah, Deep Space Nine rocks, absolutely.
Nice.
That's cool because Deep Space Nine is my favorite live action Trek of all time, and Quark's always been one of my favorite characters.
Thank you, and maybe one day we'll top the non-live action shows as well.
Yeah, I was so excited to see you on Lower Decks because Lower Decks is my current favorite Trek, and Deep Space Nine is my original favorite Trek. So.
Well,
it was amazing.
It was very smart of the creators of Lower Decks to put those two shows together because they are favorites for so many people, and so to put two favorites together is a double scoop of ice cream.
Absolutely. This was a perfect piece of television as far as I was concerned. I loved it so much. I also wanted to ask you, what's your favorite part of doing like voiceover work, and what are your favorite parts of doing live action work, and which do you prefer? Okay, so I've actually touched upon my favorite parts about doing animated work, which is there's no makeup. There's no blocking, there's no memorization. There's no getting up early at 5 o'clock in the morning. All of that is great stuff for doing the animation. The best things about doing on camera is that you get an opportunity, if you're lucky enough to have a recurring character or a series regular character, you get to do what Shar just said before. You get to gradually sculpt a character over a course of time. And that to me is one of the delights of being a recurring character on a TV show, is that granted the writers are doing it for you first, but you get to interpret that arc along the way. And that is delicious.
Cherie, any other thoughts or questions tonight?
I did want to say that also I love your book, The Merchant Prince.
Thank you very much. That trilogy took many years to write, and I hope you'll get around to my next trilogy, which is Illyria, which is out.
Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
In fact, 2 of the 3 books are out. The third one will come out January the 24th. It's not science fiction. It's historical mystery, and I'm very proud of those books as well. But thank you for liking Merchant Prince.
Cherie, thank you so much. We'll say goodnight, and we'll see you next time, okay?
Live long and prosper.
Take care.
Likewise.
Bye.
Armin, by the way, of course I would be remiss if I didn't allow you to tell people where to get your books. So you please use this platform as you see fit.
Well, very quickly, my publisher is Jumpmaster Press. That's one word, Jumpmaster, and then the second word, press. If you go to www.jumpmaster press, you can get my books there. You can get them at Amazon.com, although they are truly the real Ferengi Amazon. Or you can go to my website, arminshimmerman.com, and buy it there. So there's several marketplaces that you can buy the books. The 2 books, as I said, are already out. Very proud of them, gotten very good reviews on them. And the third one has just been finished and will come out on January the 24th.
Before we go to our next caller, and JD, I see you waiting there. We'll be with you in just a second. I love this. Rand in the chat says, if Quark were to be likened to a Shakespearean character, who do you think it would be? Ooh. So any thought there?
Yeah, I would imagine Festi from Twelfth Night.
Nice.
Who has always got his hand out for more money, but is also very clever and very witty, and knows how to ingratiate himself into people that are higher up.
Nice. All right. There you go, Rand. That's what you got. And then, so let's go to JD, who is patiently waiting. JD, good to see you. Welcome to the show tonight. Oh, you are muted. We will do our best to unmute you. There you are.
All right. Sorry. Technology and I.
No trouble.
It's been a while since I called in, but I just want to say, Charlene, hi. I was on the Delta Quadrant with you. I was on the Delta Quadrant podcast with you 87 years ago.
Yeah. The very first podcast I ever did. It's really nice to see your face. I know your voice.
I used to have more face, but now I'm trying to Riker from that parallel universe when he looked like a kid. Yeah, I'm doing that. So
nice.
But Mr. Shimmerman, wow, I can't believe I actually can say hi to you. That's awesome.
JD, before you go any further, you have a great voice. You should think about doing voice work.
If I had any idea how to break into work like that, I just might. I have very little, I don't have any stage fright. At first I was like, I don't know about this, but yeah, I don't have a problem being on camera either. People might have a problem with me being on camera, but I have no problem with being on camera. I probably have a voice for or a face for radio, so that's cool. But it's funny that Armin Shimmerman's on the show because I just rewatched Little Green Men last night. I forgot how great that show was, how great that episode was, and now I have to wonder, in Quark's store on Deep Space Nine, the Ferengi tooth sharpeners, do they probably sell those in his store? Because Worf bought Nog's, teeth sharpener, but I have to imagine there'd be like Quark branded teeth sharpeners in the store.
Well, maybe I can only tell you that in the 7 years that I worked behind the bar, I never saw a tooth sharpener for sale. So I don't know if he has them or not. I think he concentrated on booze, basically.
The more important things.
And the hollow suites, of course.
Yeah.
It was a profitable industry, apparently. But I watched this episode, and from the original, the trailer for this season, we saw that they were going to show up at Deep Space Nine, but I was not anticipating them going onto the station, was really not anticipating Armin Shimmerman and the Now Visitor actually providing their voices for the, I was shocked. It was perfect. And I kept watching this thinking, this is the first time we've seen Deep Space Nine post season 7 in the continuity. And I love how they've kept the station up. And like I watched this whole episode. I'm like, there's nothing to complain about with this show. I mean, this has been a great season anyways, between James Cromwell and now more of these voices coming back. But I'm like, this went from a show that they seem to have trouble marketing at first. Like before the first season, they kept playing up the comedy aspect, like the Rick and Morty style humor. And the more I watch the show, the more I'm like, this is not only legitimate Star Trek, but this is like, it's becoming more Trek every season. Like, I hope this show goes on for like 10 years. I mean, I hope it, I hope it breaks the 7-season regular stint that Star Trek has. I hope this show blows way past it.
It has every reason to do that, JD. And let me explain the 7th season thing very quickly. Next Generation and Deep Space Nine were sold to syndication. They weren't sold to CBS or ABC or NBC like the original show was. So 7 years is just about as much episodes as a syndicate can use, because they'd like to replay things over and over. 7 is the perfect number. That's what, it's not that we were canceled. We always knew from day one, if we were going to make 7, it was going to be 7. We would never say 8.
Okay. Well, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Less than 7, yes, if it was really a bomb. But you couldn't do more than 7 because it would be too much toilet paper. You're just going to only buy so much toilet paper before you.
Right. Yeah, that lands you kind of near that magic number, about 178, between less than 180 episodes, right around there, and that fills a year of syndications. So they're right on the mark with that.
And why Voyager was only 7, that I can't answer. But for the first 2 shows, that's the reason.
That's cool. I didn't know that. It
I'm
does kind of.
That's what I do. I educate. So
I'm glad to know that. That's cool.
Now we know that Mike McMahon has come on our show and other shows and said that he has an 8-season plan for Lower Decks. So that would put us at 80 episodes. Maybe he can squeeze out a few more because it feels like there's a lot of story to tell here.
I would love that. I keep wondering if the show's going to go near. If it's going to cover the destruction of Romulus and Remus, because at this point in the timeline, they're still a few years away from that, right?
Yeah,
like at least, right?
So yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see if they tackle that or not. But anyways, I will let the next caller. I've rambled enough. I just want to say it was nice talking to you all, Mr. Shimmerman. It was really cool to meet you. That's awesome. Wait, one thing. My firstborn child and I are watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and now they are 18 and they have just finished high school, so they are not real high on the idea of the high school principal anyways.
No, it shouldn't be. What could anyone be?
Snyder is definitely one that they are not crazy about, and I think it's hysterical because I love the character as horrible as he can be to the students. I'm like, he's impossible not to like, although I might be biased because he's also Quark, but I'm not sure. So,
thank you for that. Snyder and Quark were diametrically opposed to each other, and I was fortunate enough to do them exactly at the same time.
That's amazing. But it was nice talking to John, Charlene. It was nice talking to you all.
Nice to see you.
Live long and prosper. Ironically, I'm the only Star Trek fan in my family. I can't do it. I can't get these 2 fingers together. Isn't that terrible?
It takes training. It takes practice. Both hands.
Do this, John. Do this.
Yeah,
there you go. Yeah.
Nice. All right, JD, take care.
Take care, buddy.
Good to see you. Hey, before we go to our last caller, Armin, I wanted to ask you. You said that you were at a convention recently, and you've had the chance to kind of connect with some of the actors that maybe you haven't known as well. Have you hung out with any of the cast from Lower Decks? Obviously, you're not working with them, and you're recording in
I haven't had the
isolation.
opportunity to meet any of them. As I said, when I recorded, I was alone, and I haven't had a chance to meet them. I'm sure they will be at conventions, and I will get that opportunity. I'm looking forward to it because I've been watching the show, and I'm a big fan of the work that they do.
Yeah, I was going to say, and probably no surprise to our audience, friend of the show, Fred Tatasciore, who is Lieutenant Shax. I thought he's another one of those MVP voice players. He's so good. And this week I watched it, the first time I watched it, out of several times that I watched it, hearing him as Karzan, I think, the Karama. I know I'm getting the name wrong, but the Karama head. I was like, is this like a John Lithgow impression that he's doing? Because it's really good. He had that.
Reminded me of that too.
Yeah.
Fred is one of the best voiceover actors you can find. If you go to his IMDb page, you will see hundreds of shows that he's done, different cartoon characters. And my experience with animation actors, they are extraordinary, and it's very likely that he may be doing John Lithgow, because all of them spend their days trying to emulate voices to use when it's needed on the various animation shows. Oftentimes, when you do an animated show, they ask you to do more than one character, and it has to be radically different so that nobody knows it's the same actor. I've known Fred for a very long time, because we have the same voiceover agent.
Nice.
And I am a big fan of his.
He's great. He's so good. And those times when you lose yourself in a character and you forget that it's the same actor doing multiple voices, that's really magic. I mean, you go back to Star Trek, the animated series, and when you had Majel and Nichelle and James Doohan doing the majority of the guest voices, but you can always tell, and that's a lot of fun, but you can always tell. Then when you have somebody like Fred doing these, it's remarkable. I mean, he is absolutely ridiculously talented.
Huge talent. It's a huge talent.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's go to our final caller tonight. Oh, wait, did he just disappear? Spencer, where did you go? You were just there, and then
he went through the wormhole.
He went through the wormhole. We thought that the ship had stopped, and no. I guess we did. Well, maybe he'll come back in a moment. We certainly have to hope so. We'll give him a moment here to try to come back to us. I think Earl will work on that from the Earl Green Room.
Yes.
I'm noticing, by the way, Shar, in your notes, you had one line here in 2 words: screamy Quark. So clearly the Quark scream stood out to you.
I was overjoyed that Screamy Quark got to come back. Like, I was overjoyed just to have Quark and Kira. It really, forgive me, I was really banking on Kira. Like, that was my one prediction. My hope was, oh my gosh, they've got to get a visitor back. But to have you there as well was fantastic. But Screamy Quark, there's just something so endearing about that. And it was like no time had passed at all. And I loved it so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Shall I tell you where the scream came from?
Yes, please.
Dying to know.
Okay, so I don't remember the episode on Deep Space Nine, but the script said in this particular scene, Quark is supposed to cry, and I got made up, and they sent me to my trailer, and I sat in my trailer. And I sat in my trailer, and I was preparing for this crying scene, and I sat in my trailer, and I sat in my trailer, and I sat in my trailer, and I sat in my trailer. And as the hours went by, I was in no mood to cry. And when they finally got me in front of the camera, everything was set up for me to cry. Mike Goki, the sound engineer, turned the volume way down way up because I was going to be crying, and he was preparing for that. But I was so frustrated by the wait that instead of crying, I just screamed and blew out Bill's eardrums. I can remember him coming around the corner just with fire in his eyes because he had turned it way up and he had the things on. So that's where the screen came from, and the writers liked it so much they began to incorporate it into scripts.
That's a very cool story. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
So, sound guys always risk it, at some point on set.
Yeah, I mean, they do miraculous stuff because I have noticed over the course of my acting career that actors have begun to speak very quietly on the set. And for the four sound men are trying desperately to get the dialogue.
See, at that point, everybody listening to the show tomorrow on the audio, they turned it way up, and they will say, thank you for joining us. And
Wow.
by the way, thank you everybody who joined us. Armin, thank you so much for your time again. Just a delight to hear you talk about your process and your work and about Quark in particular. Dr. Dawson points out in the chat, if you weren't on the show tonight, you missed out that the Earl Green Room has complimentary Sluggo Cola and Tube Grubs. So
Wow.
thank you, Earl, for providing that for all of
He's
our
really on it
callers.
tonight.
Yeah, that is not coming out of the Mission Log budget, so you're on your own for that. So with that said...
Don't worry about saving those receipts. You're on your own.
Exactly. Mission Log Live is produced by Roddenberry Entertainment. Technical production on Mission Log and Mission Log Live by the indubitable Earl Green. Be sure to visit podcast.roddenberry.com for the latest from Roddenberry Podcasts. If you'd like to support Mission Log directly, give us a look at patreon.com/missionlog. Thank you, Charlene Schmidt, for co-hosting with me this week. Thanks to
Thank you.
everyone who joined us live or later. We look forward to discussing Lower Decks Season 3, Episode 7 with all of you next week.
This is a Roddenberry podcast. For more great podcasts, visit podcast.roddenberry.com.